While serving as president in 2020, Donald Trump planned to ban the social media app TikTok from operating in the United States, and he was considering signing an order forcing China's ByteDance to sell the app over national security concerns. As far as TikTok is concerned, we're banning them from the United States, Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One.
Well, that sounds strong.
Yeah, he knows exactly. He's very, very concise there.
Yeah, so he's against it. I mean, he's against TikTok.
No TikTok.
No commies surveilling the
no
United
TikTok
States.
For you.
Yep, okay.
Last month, Trump welcomed conservative hedge fund manager Jeff Yass to Mar-a-Lago.
But doesn't he have a huge stake in TikTok?
Yeah, $33 billion stake in the social media app.
Okay.
Over the weekend, one-time Trump advisor Steve Bannon suggested the former president was paid off by Yass to switch his stance on the platform. Trump denied discussing TikTok with him. Yesterday, as legislation that could ban TikTok makes its way through Congress with Republican support, Trump was asked about the measure.
So if he still supports it.
Well, of course, right.
Yeah.
I could have banned TikTok. I had it banned just about. I could have gotten it done. But I said, you know what? But I'll leave it up to you. I didn't push them too hard because, let them do their own research and development. And they decided not to do it. But as you know, I was at the point where I could have gotten it done if I wanted to. I sort of said, you guys decide, you make that decision, because it's a tough decision to make. Frankly, there are a lot of people on TikTok that love it. There are a lot of young kids on TikTok who will go crazy without it. There are a lot of users. There's, a lot of good, and there's a lot of bad with TikTok. But the thing I don't like is that without TikTok, you can make Facebook bigger. And I consider Facebook to be an enemy of the people, along with a lot of the media.
Let's bring in right now former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, retired four-star Admiral James Stavridis. He's Chief International Analyst for NBC News. Contributing writer for The Atlantic, Elliot Ackerman. He served 5 tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan, where he received the Silver Star, the Bronze Star for Valor, and the Purple Heart. They are co-authors of a new book titled 2054, a novel, which is the sequel to their bestseller, 2034, a novel of the next world war. We're going to get to that in a moment, but Admiral, first, let's talk about TikTok. Donald Trump, everything you said there was a lie, just in case I could fact check him, but just read the Wall Street Journal editorial page today. They fact check him for me. But let me read just very quickly from this, just to talk about some of the real concerns. Why Donald Trump has flip-flopped, as Steve Bannon said, because a billionaire with a lot invested in TikTok wants him to flip-flop. This is the Wall Street Journal editorial page. Not a left-wing rag, obviously. TikTok can't explain why posts that are divisive in America go viral, while those that are sensitive for the Communist Chinese Party get few views. TikTok's algorithms are still controlled by ByteDance engineers in China. Chinese law requires ByteDance to comply with Beijing's surveillance demands. This is why there is no way to mitigate TikTok security risks besides a forced divestment. ByteDance employees once tried to uncover internal leakers by spying on American journalists. The Communist Chinese Party, through TikTok, spied on American journalists to try to uncover leaks. And they end by saying China has blocked U.S. social media companies that don't comply with their censorship regime, and the House bill would prevent Beijing from applying its political speech controls and surveillance in the U.S. Despite America's political divisions, this should be a shared goal, and it looks like it is a shared goal, except for Donald Trump, who, a billionaire, walks through the gates of Mar-a-Lago, and suddenly he's fine with the Communist Chinese Party surveilling Americans.
Yeah. Do the words "the swamp" mean anything to you? Let's face it. TikTok is universally across the political spectrum regarded as a national security threat, not just a concern, a threat. And on this one, I listened to chairman of the bipartisan House Committee on China, outgoing Congressman Mike Gallagher, combat Marine, a terrific thinker about China, and he is deeply worried and concerned about this, and we all ought to be. And final thought to the novel 2054, it's all about how artificial intelligence can insert itself into these social networks. And here is a beaten path to the heart of America, TikTok, to our youth. We need to get control of it. It should not be connected to ByteDance.
Yeah, and one more issue, and then we'll jump into the book. Front cover, women are now enlisting in large numbers in Ukraine because there have been a shortage of men. And so a lot more women are enlisting. We, of course, are faced with the shame of House Republicans, people who claim to support freedom, people who claim to support Ukraine, meekly sitting back and letting Ukraine twist in the wind. And that's exactly what every Republican chairman that claims to be a big supporter, but's doing nothing right now to get aid to Ukraine, it's exactly what they're doing. And you know, Orban basically killed Hamlet in the first act yesterday by telling us why the House Republican Party won't fund him, because Donald Trump promised him if he's reelected, he will immediately cut off all aid to Ukraine. What is the impact on America, on NATO, on Europe, on America's role in the world?
Yeah, to stay with the metaphor of Hamlet, Orban is playing Polonius in this empty fool who natters along through Act 3 until he's finally killed. Here's the point. If we walk away from Ukraine now, and my wonderful co-author Elliot just returned from Ukraine, and I'm sure would have a thought on this, if we walk away now, we're repeating the 1930s. We are ceding Europe to a malevolent force in the form of Vladimir Putin. We will rue the day we did that. It would be an enormous geopolitical mistake.
Well, Elliot, before we dive into the book, let me ask you about that, since you just returned from Ukraine, which is this idea, not just Donald Trump, by the way, but the United States Congress, the House of Representatives now has stalled months and months and months worth of desperately needed aid to Ukraine as it's forced to retreat in some places. What's the impact on the ground of the Congress sitting on its hands?
I mean, yeah, the impact is profound. You know, time is a maneuver space that exists on the battlefield. So it doesn't just matter that you get the equipment, it matters when you get the equipment. And the story of the U.S. response and the Western response in Ukraine has just been not enough and too slow. You know, and to the story you mentioned, when I was there, I visited several fighting units. You know, I served in the Marine Corps, and the average age in the units I served in was 20, 21 years old. The average age of soldiers in these units, 42, 43 years old.
And so Russia is still producing at a high capacity, producing ammunition. They're outproducing the United States in the West right now. So if it continues this way, what does it look like 6 months from now, a year from now in Ukraine?
I mean, I think the Ukrainians can, hold out 2-3 more months, but there isn't a 6-month or a year out option to recommit to Ukraine. So, the aid needs to come. It needs to come now, or else we're going to be dealing with the consequences, which is further Russian incursions into Ukraine and a further destabilized Europe.
All right, let's turn to the book, 2054, coming off the bestseller, 2034. I'm just going to read a little bit of the thumbnail and tell me if any of this sounds familiar. A future where the Democratic and Republican parties are near a point of extinction. The U.S. is on the edge of a civil war, a president who will not leave office, and the emergence of remote gene editing software courtesy of AI that may or may not have assassinated him. A lot in there. Tell us where we find ourselves in 2054 in this new book.
Well, in 2054, we find ourselves, as you mentioned, at the beginning of a political crisis. The president has been killed. We don't know who or what killed him. And we have two very divergent Americas living in two curated realities that are being curated by artificial intelligence.
So, Admiral, there's obviously authoritarian nations here, Russia, China, Iran, that play a part in your books. So tell us about the role they play on the page, but also what lessons we can draw as if they also go unchecked in real life.
Without question, power corrupts. and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That is the essential lesson of leadership in authoritarian nations. And thus, as we see in 2054, the president simply refuses to lose office. Something decides that it's time for him to go. That's where the artificial intelligence comes in.
And so, Elliot, this does give us a little bit of a view. Hopefully it doesn't go this way, about where AI could take us over the course of the next 25, 30 years. What's your sense, as you're well-versed in artificial intelligence from just reading this book, what's your sense of, plays into the book, but where it's going here in reality as well?
Well, one of the ideas we get into in the book is this concept of what's known as the singularity, which is the moment when technological evolution starts merging with biological evolution and the permeability between the two. And we've just sort of lived through an iteration of that in the pandemic when we were all getting vaccines, which were basically a version of technology. So what does it look like as not only our curated realities on social media start blurring, but our kind of technological and biological realities start merging? And that gets into the weapon that kills the president and is also threatening to take over the United States. But this is a part of a project that the Admiral and I have been doing that started with 2034 and are really a trilogy of books that serve to deal and imagine with what we view as kind of the three great challenges facing us in the 21st century. One was China. The second one is artificial intelligence and civil conflict. And without spoiling too much, the last will be about the environment.
So, Admiral, what is your sense on the question of artificial intelligence, hopes and fears about where it may be headed?
I think that's exactly the right construct. And if you look at great inventions in history, think the printing press or electricity, big things that truly move the needle of the human experience, they come with risk and they come with benefit. And I would argue I'm cautiously optimistic ultimately about what artificial intelligence can do for us. But the whole point of the book, the whole point of 2054 is it's not strictly predictive fiction, it's cautionary fiction. It lays out some of the risks. I think those could be profound. On the other hand, the benefits could be profound. Last thought, what we do now in 2024, as we think about mid-century and how we can contain and shape artificial intelligence will matter deeply, Willie.
It's a thriller and a little too close for comfort to reality here. The new book is titled 2054, a novel. Retired four-star Navy Admiral James Stavridis, contributing writer at The Atlantic, Elliot Ackerman. Thank you both. And Elliot, thank you for your extraordinary service to the country. We appreciate you both. Thanks.